Joy boy, maybe 12 years old, marched in chains through the forest of southeastern Nigeria, sold from hand to hand toward the coast. Now picture the same person 60 years later, receiving European consuls as equals, signing treaties recognized in London, shipping thousands of tons of cargo straight to Liverpool under his own flag. Same man. This is the story of Jaja of Opobo, a captive who built a kingdom, ruled it like a sovereign, and was ultimately destroyed by the empire he had outsmarted for 20 years. Around 1821, in a village called Umudoroha in Igbo land, a boy was born who would later be known as Mbanaso Ozurumba. As a child, he was kidnapped, likely funneled through long-distance slave trading networks that linked the Igbo interior to the coast. And by 1833, he had arrived at Boni, one of the great trading city-states of the Niger Delta. There, he was sold into a powerful merchant house called Anna Purple, and there he was given a new name, Jubo Juboha. British traders, struggling with the pronunciation, simplified it to Jaja. To understand what happened next, you need to understand the world he had landed in. The Niger Delta wasn't run by kings alone. It ran on something called the Kano House, part trading company, part, I mean, part extended family. A Kano House could include free members, pawns, and slaves. And remarkably, leadership of a house could go to slave if he proved capable enough. Jaja proved capable enough. He worked the palm oil trade, booming new business that had replaced the slave trade after Britain outlawed it. And when his master died, Jaja took over running the house's affairs. By 1863, he was head of the entire Anna Purple House. Captive Boy was now one of the most powerful men in Bonny. The other most powerful man was Oku Jumbo, head of the rival Manila Purple House. And as Jaja's wealth began outpacing his rivals, the fragile balance between Bonny's 18 Kano houses started to track. Tensions simmered for years. The 1865 truce banning firearms, the 1867 street brawl fought with machetes and broken bottles. Then, in 1869, it exploded into full civil war. Oku Jumbo's forces had old heavy cannons. Jaja's side took serious losses, and Bonny itself was devastated. But Jaja did not surrender. He did something far bolder. He walked away. He led his followers out of Bonny entirely, and on Christmas Day, 1870, he founded a brand new kingdom, naming it Opobo, after a legendary Bonny king of the previous century. And here's the remarkable part. 14 of Bonny's 18 Kano houses chose to follow him. No royal blood, no European backing, just reputation, wealth, and sheer competence. And people voted with their feet. Bonny's own rules said a former slave could never be king. At Opobo, Jaja simply became one. Amanyanabo, king. Jaja did not just found a kingdom. He ran it like a master strategist. He had chosen the location specifically because it controlled the river route carrying roughly three-quarters of the Eastern Delta's palm oil, and its core policy was monopoly. No European trader, no rival African middleman. He gets to deal directly with producers in the interior. Everything flowed through him. By 1870, Opobo was shipping around 8,000 tons of palm oil a year, straight to British buyers, bypassing Bonny completely. Within a few years, Opobo had eclipsed the city that once enslaved him as the leading palm oil exporter in the entire Eastern Delta. He was selective about what else he let in. He sent his own sons to school in Glasgow and built a secular school in Opobo, staffed by European tutors. But he banned Christian missionaries outright. Not out of hostility to learning, but because he had watched missionary footholds elsewhere in the Delta quietly erode local authority. He wanted European tools, not European institutions. European officials, even ones who hated his monopoly, admitted it. This was a genuinely formidable ruler. But the world around Jaja was changing fast. By the 1880s, over 200 European trading firms were competing for Delta palm oil, and they were sick of being locked out of direct access to producers. They wanted what they called free trade, which in practice meant freedom for European capitals, not freedom for African producers. Then came 1884, the Berlin Conference. European powers carved up Africa on a map in Germany with zero African representation. Opobo was simply assigned to Britain's sphere of influence on paper. In July 1887, under direct threats of naval bombardment, Jaja signed a new treaty guaranteeing free trade through its territory. It was diplomacy at gunpoint. Sensing the walls closing in, he began quietly moving his wealth back to the Igbo hinterland, his birthplace, as insurance against disaster. It wasn't enough. In September 1887, a young, ambitious British vice consul named Henry Hamilton Johnston arrived at Opobo aboard the gunboat HMS Goshawk. He invited Jaja aboard for negotiations. Jaja, no fool, refused at first, until Johnston personally guaranteed him safe and unconditional return. It was a lie. Once Jaja was aboard, Johnston gave him an ultimatum: accept deportation or watch Opobo destroyed by British guns. Jaja chose to spare his people. He was taken to Accra, put on trial in November 1887, and on December 1st, found guilty of obstructing trade routes and violating the spirit of the Berlin Treaty. From there, his journey got stranger. He was taken to London and, by several accounts, even received at Buckingham Palace by Queen Victoria herself. Then, in 1888, Parliament approved his permanent removal from West Africa. He was shipped to exile in the British West Indies, first St. Vincent, then Barbados. Even there, his story followed him. The black population of Barbados, fully aware of what had been done to him, was outraged at seeing an African king treated this way. And according to local tradition, the proud way he carried himself in captivity left its mark on the language itself. Even Britain's own Prime Minister, Lord Salisbury, could not defend it. He said plainly that elsewhere this would just be called kidnapping. For years, Jaja and his people petitioned for his release. In 1891, permission finally came. He never made it home. Traveling back by way of the Canary Islands, Jaja died at Santa Cruz de Tenerife in early July 1891. The official record says natural causes. Persistent tradition among his own people says poison. We don't actually know which is true, and that uncertainty is itself part of his story. His people refused to leave him buried so far from home. At their own expense, the Opobo community repatriated his remains and gave him a funeral fit for a king. Today, he rests in a sacred grave behind the palace of Opobo's ruler. In 1903, the people of Opobo raised a memorial to him, inscribed with a line his enemies in London never quite managed to say while he was alive. A king in title and indeed. Jaja's life resists easy categories. He built his fortune on the same exclusionary monopoly he resented in others. He was both a product of slavery and later a participant in it. And yet, for 2 decades, a man with no inherited title outmaneuvered an empire until that empire decided it no longer needed his cooperation at all. That's the real lesson of Jaja of Opobo. It's not just a rags to riches story. It is a story about how far African agency could stretch within 19th century imperial systems, and exactly where and how brutally that agency could still be cut short. Thank you for watching the video. We hope you've been able to share the values of the life and lessons of Jaja of Opobo. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment other stories you would like us to unfold. Thank you.